All Spidey.
Appreciate it. That's awesome. Well, I got my little Spidey cup here too. So that's cool.
Oh,
That's awesome.
perfect. Um, well, yeah, so I guess we should start. My
Sure
name,
thing.
okay, my name is Evan, and welcome to another very special episode of We've Got Issues presents Brandon Melo. Say hey.
How's it going, everyone?
Who was very generous to join us today, and it's one of those interviews where I don't really, you do so much. I don't know where to start, man. So I'll just start with, how have you been?
Uh, Tired, I guess. I've been traveling a lot. There's just a lot going on. Took on a few too many projects, and yeah, no. Besides that, I mean, I'm excited for everything that's coming out, and obviously the projects are good fun, but it's just a lot of work, a lot of traveling, and haven't had a break yet. But we're planning. Me and my roommate Eddie are planning on going on a vacation, hopefully soon, with
That'll
just like
be
a bunch
nice.
of friends. So yeah,
Great.
obviously keeping it COVID safe,
Yeah,
but hoping
right. As soon as that's over.
to escape from work for a little bit, and shut off my phone.
Hear that, hear that. Well, I mean, I guess I should start by saying that, so I, of course, met you because you are, what, the creator, lead actor, producer, director, writer,
Yeah,
costumer, man of many hats with
yeah,
the very upcoming fan series, Spider-Man and the Monsters of Manhattan. I keep on saying Mutants of Manhattan. I apologize, Monsters
okay,
of
no
Manhattan. Well, mutants do play a theme in your show,
Yes,
so that's
yeah.
probably why.
We we wanted to kind of tell the story of what if Spider-Man was in phase one of the MCU, along with the idea of like what if Marvel just owned all of their characters from the start. So we kind of play with a lot of nostalgia, things that people are familiar with, and the concept of the Statue of Liberty event occurred. So some of the events of X-Men 1 took place, and we're playing around with conceptually what would people's perception be of superheroes after those events, and we're playing around with the concepts of discrimination to mutants, and Spider-Man, just like in the Ultimate Comics, is categorized as a mutant, regardless of the fact that he didn't get his abilities from birth.
He's apparently a totem, a spider totem.
Exactly. So yeah, we're just kind of playing around with a bunch of fun ideas that haven't been seen before, and that's what we really wanted to do, is just kind of take a new, fresh approach to Spider-Man, still keeping it familiar, not changing the character necessarily, but the scenarios that he's in. So yeah.
Well, very awesome, and congratulations on such a successful fundraising campaign.
Thank you. Yeah, that was it was a lot of work. It wasn't. It took a lot of I guess kind of a traffic, bringing as much organic traffic towards the site as much as possible to kind of boost up those numbers, because we're a new indie production, so it's hard to kind of get eyes on you.
Sure.
Even if you're doing a known IP project like Spider-Man, it's still like, okay, well, there's 20 other people doing that. What makes you different, you know? And 20 is I guess is a really small number in comparison to what's actually going on. But yeah, yeah, we just wanted to finish our idea, and we we ended up actually going over budget, and it was all produced by my mom and I. It was definitely troublesome. We're at the last leg of shooting. We had like 2 weeks left, and production obviously can be costly if you're traveling. Everything that we pulled off, it was just definitely troublesome to kind of finish it, and having it be out of pocket. So thankfully, our donators helped us out at the very end of it, and made our dream project a reality. So definitely, it was nice.
I think that's probably part of the reason why your fundraiser was so successful is because you've got everyone involved in this project, both in front and behind the camera, has like such a passion for both this project in particular and Spider-Man and the Spider-Man world, I guess, as a whole, right? That it's almost infectious. So I could imagine that a bunch of people were like, tuning in, what's this all about? And then just seeing everyone's enthusiasm for it. Um, so speaking of getting people involved in different locations and stuff, uh, I don't know if you're ready to share or if it's all hush hush, but you got a couple of well-known people involved as well as locations. How did that go?
Um, in regards to, I'll start with the influencers since
Sure.
I'll just go in chronological order. Yeah, in regards to the influencers, it was just kind of uh, I, it's a weird way to describe it, but it was kind of just like a happy instance, like it was just kind of, it was just like good timing. A lot of these people were interested, obviously, in the character and interested working with us and the crew that we had on board, and um, it was kind of like a weird situation where we just reached out to one, and inevitably over time, as networking goes, you're like, oh wait, this person, that person.
Sure.
And it kind of it just kind of stemmed from that. And I was a fan of the majority of the people that we had on board, and we were just like, Tatiana from Batman Son. I was like, oh, I saw you as Black Widow. It'd be great if you were our Black Widow as well. And Kevin Porter were like, whoa, you were Batman. You want to be the principal?
Sure.
So it was just kind of like it was just kind of like a good story and a perfect timing, and everyone was available. Obviously, what happened with COVID was terrible, but when
Yeah.
COVID struck, it's genuinely like good for some of these indie projects, because the majority of these influencers and people like Jamie Costa and all the all of these other YouTubers and influencers, we made it work with their scheduling and made it as appealing as possible, and they like the majority of the writing. So we just reached out, and I feel like that's just kind of a note for a majority of up and coming filmmakers. Don't be afraid of reaching out and trying your best shot, and the worst that they can ever say is no. That kind of that same logic kind of applied to some of these other locations. I would have never dreamt that we would have gotten the location from Joker when it came to that train cart
Yeah.
fight. But it was just kind of like a happy instance, like the initial location that we had didn't end up working out, but they referenced this other location that had the Joker train cart. And my producer Alex called me, and he was just like, "Man, you'll never believe this." And this is like a week before we're supposed to be shooting, because that's actually a funny story. So we're on set, and we were shooting like this really intense like Fisk sequence, and he's talking about like his psychology behind be like heroism and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's giving his villain speech or whatever, and I get
Every
a phone
great
call.
Villain's got to have one, right? Sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
No. It's all good. It's all good. But yeah, no, he just called. I was checking my watch, and I was like, why is Alex late? I don't. And he's always on time. This was the one time he was late. I was really concerned. I was like, what happened to Alex? Is he okay? And I was on set checking my phone like every 10 minutes, and I was wondering where he was. And he calls me, and he's like, dude, okay, I have some bad news. The location that we have, it's not going to work out. I'm like, ah, man. And he's like, but I got us a better deal. I was on the phone with this guy for over 1 hour and a half, and this is the same location that they use in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And I'm like, what is that from? And he's like, the same train cart from Joker. And I'm like, ah! I was like, I know what that one is. Yeah, dude. When Alex sent me the location, I had no idea it was in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I thought it was just this weird instance where I was just like, oh my god. Like I was on set and I was so exhausted because of like everything. Like I just got back from shooting another day. These are long days, from 12 to 16 hours. Some of them occasionally were 18 hours, and it's just day after day. Like we shot for 3 months straight with really no no breaks. And yeah, no, we got to the Joker train cart, and I was so dazed. I was like, okay, we gotta get this shot, guys. All right, let's go to this. Let's do it. And everyone on set was just like, oh my god, like pulling up reference images of the location in the films, and it was really surreal. And it wasn't until like I took a break and I had a moment to kind of step back and understand, like, really fully understand like everything that we did. Was I able to like fully appreciate it? I was able to. It's been interesting recently. Now that we're kind of like in the editing phase of the show, I can take a moment as just like a fan,
Yeah.
just kind of like take in all of it and be like, ah, yes, this is
Yeah,
what
we
I
were
wanted to
actually
see.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely weird to kind of like see yourself going through these motions, because like when you're on set, it's just so much stress, and it kind of weighs down on you, especially when, like you said, I was wearing many hats, and that's because it was an up and coming production. And before this project, I was a no name. I still kind of am, but now I have some like credits under my name, and people are semi familiar with my work. So it's definitely a cool process.
And you've been getting offers to appear in other gigs as a result of doing this. So
Yeah,
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 it's
yeah.
great.
No, it's been cool. 'Cause, like even today we got some cool fan interactions, and I'm like, oh yeah, people.
I got fans.
I guess I want to say that, but people that like to watch the stuff, and it's cool. It's been really cool. And this kind of all stemmed from a love for the characters. Now that I get to kind of like honestly, when I watch the footage, I don't really even see it as like myself. I kind of just see it as like the character, and I'm like, oh, is this good for the narrative itself? And yeah, I'm just excited for people to see it and kind of see the story that we told, because I think it was very beautiful and tragic, and I think there's a really good story that I hope will resonate with people. And yeah.
So I gotta ask. It's kind of a twofold question, but I'll start with the first half part.
Yeah.
um, how long have you like been a Spidey fan?
Um, Honestly, since I, I I can't even remember a time that I wasn't,
Makes sense.
since a very young age, like I was I was I was in a Spider-Man since the Raimi films. I mean,
Well, of
if it
course,
isn't obvious
yeah.
with the suit, Um, but yeah, no, that version of the character was what I grew up with, and I kind of want to take the audience back to that time, and where heroism was kind of perceived a little bit differently. I feel like not necessarily when it comes to the MCU, but just in general, I feel like the majority of our superheroes have become kind of like rock stars.
Yeah.
Even Superman and Man of Steel, he's making out with Lois Lane. And you have this destroyed background of like the whole city is
Yeah,
gone
right.
to
The whole
ruin.
fight was on. Don't even. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I kind of want to just take it back to like a very simple story, and I feel like that's what a majority of the Raimi films were. It wasn't
Yeah.
it wasn't focused on world building. It wasn't focused on like any of the aspects that it's not about building a franchise. It was about telling a really good story, and we have some cool Easter eggs when it comes to the X-Men and Iron Man and all of those characters. But the story at the
The
end of the
phones.
day that we're trying to tell is about Spider-Man. It isn't
Yeah.
about um, the grander scheme of things, and any of the characters that do appear like Black Widow or Nick Fury. It's in service of Spider-Man's narrative, and kind of helping him grow as a character. And that's what I'm really excited about the most, is that you can have this grander like MCU backdrop, but that's all it really is. It's just kind of like a backdrop. It shouldn't be the focus of
Yeah.
the narrative. And I feel like that's where some of the recent MCU films have been kind of like steering away from telling stories, and it's more about franchise potential.
Setting up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Okay.
what I'm
Perfect.
doing.
So the second part of that question, the first part was easy.
Yeah.
The second part is so.
Yeah.
What led you to decide to make a Spider-Man based project to begin with?
Um. Well, I guess I guess it comes from a place of just like so I've been wanting to be an actor since I was like 7, 8 years old,
Okay.
and I was doing a ton of modeling gigs, and I was doing a ton of like lower tier like acting gigs here and there, and just in general I wasn't getting casted. Like I would go to audition after audition, and I would very rarely get a role. And I had this passion for telling stories and acting, and Spider-Man was a like a male role model in my life that I really looked up to and really helped me out as a kid, and he as a character got me through like a lot of dark times. So I guess the story is that I was driven to tell this story of Spider-Man, and I was kind of like a chubby kid, when I was like 10, and I ended up losing weight to I pushed myself to get into shape, and so I'm able to really accurately portray this character. So it kind of plays as as a way for me to show off my acting skills and kind of allow myself to kind of branch off and get to these other jobs. But it also is a love letter to the character that I grew up with. It kind of just showcases all of the aspects that I love about the character so much. I've been wanting to make this story for years, ever since like ever since I saw like like the first Amazing Spider-Man trailer. I was like, oh my! And I know that was way back when, and that was before I knew what the films kind of turned out to be. But I saw that trailer, and this was after the Raimi films, and I was a big fan of the comics and stuff like that. So I theorized as to how the Amazing Spider-Man films could be like the comics, and oh boy, was I disappointed. But I kind of wrote up my own version of what I thought the Amazing Spider-Man was going to be, and I didn't have a laptop at the time because I couldn't really afford one. So I wrote my first script on a typewriter.
The old-fashioned way.
Yeah, and I presented it to my professor at the time, who was teaching me, and I was going to an acting school at the time, so I was trying to really understand acting, and I was trying to like create my own scenes and try to understand the idea. Inevitably, I made a pilot for Web of Spider-Man, and it wasn't necessarily the character; it was too much of my own spin on it. I at the time I was like, let me do my own version of the character. I guess that's why Monsters in Manhattan kind of occurred, is because like and was created because I really wanted to play this character, and I felt like the last time that I did it, I didn't really do justice to the character. I think that we told a good story, but we didn't really tell a good Spider-Man story. And I feel like that's what we want to do this time around, is like stay true to the character, kind of like the same psychology of like what they did with or the logic. I mean, that they took with Captain America, the Winter Soldier. It's like, let's put this character in a new scenario that we've never seen before, but you need to still stay true to the morals and what this character was about. And that's what we're kind of doing here is telling something new and fresh with the character, and taking him places that we haven't seen before, but are familiar to comic fans.
Awesome. So, well, thank you for that amazing answer, by the way. I assure that. So, along with an amazing story and set pieces, I've had the privilege of seeing some of the actual costumes that you guys are using, and there's just there's some throwbacks to some more classic Spidey stuff in there, as well as just like you were saying, brand new versions that are still based on a core idea that are also amazing too. How did that come about? And,
I guess right now, our approach for the characters now are trying to keep it familiar, but also kind of like show appreciation to the comics and what we grew up with, and kind of the whole show is really based around nostalgia. So like, now that we're doing Iron Man, we're taking it back to the '90s suit. We're not necessarily.
Okay. with the
we're
golden
doing like the
underwear on the outside. That 90s.
no, just the classic approach where like it isn't necessarily RDJ. It is the '90s series.
Okay.
It's very much just the basic fundamentals of what's necessary for the suit. Even the arc reactor isn't necessarily what we see in the RDJ films. It's like this cool chest piece that you can see.
Awesome.
And it's a little bit different. For anybody that's confused, just Google it and you'll understand. But yeah, we're going for the pencil stash, less of the goatee, longer hair. So it's very 90s. But it's like this love letter to like everything that we grew up with, and we're just going for it. That's what fan films are supposed to be. They're supposed to be your just love letters to the character and kind of showing your appreciation. That's I guess what we're doing, because we're not we're trying to keep it as cinematic as possible, especially in the style that we're shooting it in. But at the end of the day, it's we're not trying to reinvent any of these characters. We're trying to keep it back to what was seen in the comics, and I guess I'm just trying to keep it to like what I grew up with, instead of just trying to be redundant and just make it another MCU piece.
Well, I was, of course, I don't want to give anything away that I'm not supposed to, so I'm trying to watch what I say here. But of course, I'm thinking about that one particular Spidey costume from the train set, and by set I mean filming.
Yeah,
that is a huge throwback to again, like I don't know, the 90s or something, as well as your sort of unique approach to one of the main protagonists of your film.
Oh yeah. For the Mark One Iron Man, Mark One spider armor suit. That's something that we've never seen before in live action. And we've seen the spider armor, and the Iron Spider, and I guess I felt like it was appropriate here in the story context for Peter to create that, but not even just that. It's again, like we've been talking about, it's just like this love letter to everything that we've that us as fans have been wanting to see, and that is just something that I've had on my mind for the longest time. And my buddy Jesse, Death by Cosplay on Instagram, he's the one that ended up making the suit, and we didn't give him much time. We only gave him really a month. We were just like, because we worked with him prior, and I've had this idea in my head for the longest time, and we're trying to figure like honestly, like we're rewriting this series as we were going along, because we were coming up with concepts and we were growing as filmmakers and understanding pieces. And that was just one of them where I wanted to do that for so long, and I've had that idea in my head, and I just didn't know how to do it. And Jesse made that come to life, and
so cool.
It was just spectacular.
Well put. It's a very cool look that I feel like it's been forgotten, even in the comics. It's the invention of the red spider armor. So
we're hoping now that we have Iron Man on the series, that hopefully in the future we can do the classic spider armor. Since we didn't get to see that in a cinematic portrayal, we kind of want to just do things that have been seen in the comics and kind of just trying to bring those things to life. We're trying to keep it as traditional as possible when it comes to our approach of the look of the series. Another, I'm not sure if this is what you're bringing up, but we're also keeping it focused on Peter and Flash's relationship. The whole purpose of the story is kind of almost like a PG-13, like Superbad type concept, where you get to see these two friends like kind of go their own separate ways. And kind of it's something that I can kind of relate to. People go through growing phases when they're going through high school and such. I thought it was just like a beautiful tragic narrative of like two friends that kind of just go their separate ways, and inevitably one of them becomes the bully. And I just think it's just this really interesting concept, and you kind of saw it in previous films with like more so the Harry relationship, but it was something that was hinted at in the comics for the longest time, and we kind of just wanted to bring that childhood best friend concept here. And we didn't want to do Harry again. We didn't want to do the whole Osborn thing, because we've seen it before. We've seen two iterations of that version of the narrative. But I think it's it's such an important piece of the Spider-Man story of just like showcasing that like this that best friend type character. It's such a caricature when it comes to the Spider-Man narrative that it's like necessary. You look back at all the Spider-Man films, the most recent ones you see with Ned. In the Amazing Spider-Man films, you kind of see that with obviously Gwen was more of a love interest, but she was still that best friend type character that was always there for him. That can kind of like hold his secret and kind of be there for him. And inevitably, what we want to see is just see Flash kind of become that villain character, something that Peter can't necessarily punch or run away from. It's more so like this cool, like inescapable villain that's just like a high school bully, you know.
Nice.
Because you have that physical threat with Scorpion, but here it's much more personal and it keeps it attached to the high school narrative. So yeah, that's some fun spins that we're going for.
Well, no, it's awesome. I mean, I think that you're kind of touching on this. One of the aspects that has always made the Spider-Man comics unique is that at the end of the day, it's all about his relationships with his supporting cast, right? Both in and outside of the costumes. So it's great that you're keeping that. Speaking of Scorpion, though, very different take on the character, if I can say that.
Yeah. When we approached the series and we were trying to sort out like what our version of the characters would end up looking like, we kind of just talked. Well, first, whenever you're kind of like creating just a series type narrative, you always, whenever you're pitching it to people, you always try to find like your meats. You know, regardless if you're doing it based off of a pre-established brand, you're still like, what does the show feel like? You can't be like, well, it's a Spider-Man show. It feels like Spider-Man. You need reference points, especially because a good portion of the people that were on the crew, in all honesty, didn't care for any of the Marvel universe. You know, they're kind of just there to create a good film project. So when I was pitching the show, I used Cobra Kai meets Stranger Things. Where two shows that are again based around nostalgia, all the concepts that we're bringing up. But again, if you're going to do Stranger Things, and we know Rashad Santiago, who worked on the Demogorgon for Stranger Things, and we wanted to take it to that extreme of like, okay, if we're gonna do that Stranger Things nostalgia, then you might as well take it all the way. And we kind of brought this new threat that honestly it is just vicious and horrifying, and a villain that we've never seen before in a Spider-Man film. So I just thought it was something interesting to kind of approach that. It isn't necessarily a guy in a suit, not someone that Peter can really just talk to and kind of sort things out. You get that in the first half of the season with Shocker. You get that traditional Spider-Man approach, but just like the Ultimate Comics, you have to kind of reinvent some of these villains. Even like their approach for Green Goblin was really out there with like getting that big, vicious. Yeah, so
the like more monster than a guy in a costume version of Green Goblin with the flames and everything. Yeah,
exactly. That's kind of like a reinvention of the character, and so that's where we kind of base our series in regards to like the Ultimate Comics, and that's kind of the approach that they took with PS4 as well. Like the idea of like, okay, if you're going to be telling a story, you kind of have to reinvent some of these characters, and that's what we wanted to do is take Scorpion in almost like a 2099 type approach, or the Ultimates like I brought up. So yeah.
Well, it looks awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So I will let you go soon, but I just have two more questions for you.
Sure.
First off, actually three. I lied. I'm sorry. I do that
all
on the
good.
show.
No. I love all of these questions. This is good thought-provoking.
Thank you. So I know that you've been interviewed a lot. I'm trying to think of like questions that maybe aren't asked of you that often and stuff.
Cool.
So if money was no issue, and I realize that's a big if. Money's always good. But if it were, if we lived in a world where it weren't, what if? Theoretically, how many? Because this is a season, and you're speaking about bringing in Iron Man and stuff. So, how many seasons would you theoretically like this to go?
right now, what we have mapped out is the potential for 4 seasons. Is really what we're
Okay.
talking about. We've been playing around with different concepts. We've been trying to slim it down to 3 recently, but it kind of just spans out, and there's just a lot that we have to say. And this season kind of focuses on you have that best friend relationship with Flash, but their separation isn't necessarily the focus of the season. It's really about Peter and his him overcoming his fears of and his guilt for Uncle Ben's death. And I really wanted to explore this personal relationship at the end of the day, I feel like the core of the story is just a mother and son story, something that felt very personal to me, and I haven't necessarily seen before. And like you still have that Aunt May and Peter Parker relationship in the Raimi films. It's very heartfelt, but I kind of wanted to take it a little bit further and really explore how these two characters feel and just center the show around center the show around it. And I felt like it was really the heart of it, because I grew up with a single mom, and it was something that I felt like
So
we
did I,
had to
by the
overcome
way.
as well.
So
That's
I know what that's like.
yeah, it's and it's just really these two broken people kind of getting over that loss in the family. So yeah,
Okay.
it's very rare when people actually can relate. So that's interesting.
So 4 seasons. Well, any hints or anything? Any ideas you'd like to? I realize it's early, but hey,
Um,
it'd be cool to bring this in season 3
all
or
good.
anything like
Um,
that. You want to tease?
yeah, no. I am really fascinated about kind of telling a reinvention of uh, Goblin.
Mm,
I think that's what we've been kind of discussing for a potential villain for the next season, but we're kind of just taking it one step at a time. Right now, we're focusing things on just finishing and completing
of course.
um, the first season, and in regards to what's coming up next, we recently announced that we're going to be doing an Avengers spinoff.
Oh,
That Yeah, that's been really
awesome.
cool. Yeah, we have some really dope influencers involved, and it's not a series. It's a 2-part short film.
Okay.
We just have some really awesome people attached, like King Vader and Danny Shepard, and just like some. Danny was someone that I looked up to. I've been a fan of his since Nightwing series. Getting to work with him and just like we haven't shot anything yet, but we've done plenty of read throughs. Just talking to him, he's such a brilliant person and a
Mm,
great filmmaker, and I think a lot of people are really going to like how we reinvent the character of Iron
well said. So final question for you, an
Man.
easy one, and then of course, MJ or Gwen Stacy?
Not as easy. Um, I
It's okay. You don't have to answer.
no,
That's the
no, no,
filmmaker.
no comment.
Okay. There you go. You'll just have to continue to watch to find out. Yeah.
Watch the series and it'll hopefully be self-explanatory.
Alright.
I think the answer is there.
Alright, awesome. Well, speaking of that, where can people stay up to date on the series, follow you, keep up with all this amazing
um,
stuff?
on Instagram and Twitter, and I have no idea how many other platforms. It is
There are so many.
underscore
Yeah.
right. It's underscore Brandon Mello. A and an O and one L. Mello, Melo. And then for YouTube, it is just my name again, Brandon Mello. And for the URL, it is YouTube C/Genius Films. And yeah, that's all I have to offer.
Well, that's fantastic, man. Thank you so much for coming on. And
Thank you for having me.
yeah, absolutely. And look forward to seeing what you show next.